Everyone, welcome back. And today, on this time, I am getting another productivity based session for you from a person who works with clients to optimize their productivity. She manages their times in four different um, priorities. There are four priorities one, two, three, and four. You will find that out in the episode because this is something you can also practice. And the only investment that this style of time management and productivity requires is a little bit of extra time, but it can be a really good investment because it ends up saving you more time than what you invest while you plan your day, your week ahead. I can't, I can't wait for this absolutely productive session and very passion oriented session, especially for time management, productivity, which increases your quality of life. Welcome to the coach, Nancy from the United States. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you so much, Krishiv. It's really a delight to be here with you today and to share some hopefully helpful information with your listeners. So I appreciate the opportunity.
And just like the viewers or the audience, even I am a viewer and even I'm a learner, and I look forward to uh, to learning how to save time while executing the same or maybe more number of tasks and improve the quality of life by having more leisure time to do what we like to do. But the key is to not compromise on the productivity and to get everything done, not on time, but rather before time so that you have those extra few hours of more leisure time. How better can it get? Over to you, Nancy.
You're exactly right. You are exactly right, Krishiv. I'm going to share what you introduced as the Covey quadrants or the time management matrix. That was years ago presented, formulated by Stephen Covey, and I'll show you the cover of one of his books in a moment. I want to give just a little bit of a background too, so that your audience knows why I'm speaking to them. My former work was in worksite wellness. So I worked both as initially as a health coach and then as an associate director of an organization, and then finally chief operating officer in a worksite wellness organization that provided programming to companies of all sizes. And we focused in a few areas. We focused in nutrition, exercise, stress management, self-care, sleep, those areas. And those all do come into play in creating some good work-life balance and being able to manage time effectively to be able to focus time in those areas, but doing well in those areas also redeems some time so that you can focus more productively. If you're not well nourished, your brain isn't going to be functioning as well. And same if you aren't getting appropriate exercise for you. So it all weaves together. And currently I'm retired now from that career, but I carry a lot of that forward into what I do right now. And I'm in private practice as a certified clinical hypnotherapist. And so I weave it all together. But let's get into those time management matrices that we're talking about here. So I'm going to share my screen, Krishiv, and I'll just open up with the slide that is related to my business in case any of your viewers want to capture that information, that contact information. I do welcome emails and questions. I'm very open and, very receptive to having people just ask me questions. I really enjoy that a lot. So that's my contact information. And the name of my business is Donnell Hypnotherapy. But what we're talking about today is based on the work of Stephen Covey, who's an American businessman and author and speaker. And he really has created a lot of awareness around appropriate time management. And truly, he focused mostly in the business realm. And the principles still carry over into anything that we're doing in life. And it can be as you work for an employer, it can be as you build your own business, it can just be in your personal and family life that these principles will apply. So I recently gave a 2-hour workshop on mastering work-life balance. So I'm lifting some of that information today from that 2-hour workshop. And this is one of, I was going to say Dr. Covey. He is such an expert. He deserves doctor in front of his name, but I don't think he had that. Stephen Covey, this is one of his books, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And then his other piece of work that just was really foundational was First Things First. And there is also a website that still retains his information, though Stephen Covey has passed away, but his work continues. And you can just look up Stephen Covey website and you'll find, I believe it's franklincovey.com as the website that retains all of his work. So 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, great book, wonderful book. I really encourage you and your audience to borrow a copy, buy a copy, and learn what Mr. Covey has to say. So this is my version of the 4 quadrants. And as you look at Mr. Covey's work, his graphics, his design may look a little bit different as far as the colors and the specific layout, but this framework, this overall framework is exactly what Stephen Covey taught. So you can see we have this matrix in the middle, and the rows are divided by things that are urgent and things that are not urgent, or rather the columns are, not the rows. So this is the urgent column, and this is the not urgent column. So just start thinking about the things that you manage in your daily life. And what are we talking about? What do we mean by urgent or not urgent? They would be things that are time sensitive or things that can wait, right? Then along the left-hand rows here, we have things that are important and things that are not important. So we've got this framework now, but what goes in each of these boxes? What is it? And not only what are the things that we do on a day-to-day basis or even on a long-term basis, and then also what are the results of when we function in these quadrants? So let's take a look. So in quadrant 1, these are the things that are both urgent and important. And these activities that would fall into this quadrant are things that are true crises, true pressing problems or emergencies. These are things that are very important and they have to happen now, right? And they are deadline driven. So some of these can be work related. Some of these can be like family emergencies. So these are things that are urgent and important. And the issue is, while we can take a little bit of stress, and actually we do need a little bit of positive stress to stay motivated and productive, if we're functioning largely in this quadrant, the end result is that we end up feeling stressed, we can experience burnout, because crisis management is not a healthy place for us to be living on the regular. So we're always putting out fires. There's always an emergency that has to be solved. It's just not a great place to live. So let's go ahead and look at quadrant 2. And Krishiv, if you have any questions along the way, you want to pop in and interrupt me, you are more than welcome to do that.
I am loving it. This is very detailed. And as I'm listening to you, I've already moved 2 things from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2 because they're not so deadline driven. They can be scheduled for later.
Excellent. Yes. So, and hopefully everyone who's listening will also be not just listening, but interpreting, how does this look in my life? What can I do to shift a little bit? So I'm glad you said that. So in quadrant 2, These are things that are not urgent, they're not time sensitive, but they are important. And so the things that fall into this category would be our planning. It can be our immediate daily planning. It can be our, like you mentioned, our week planning, or even our long range planning. What will the next 1, 3, 5 years look like? And certainly things will change over a long period of time. But one of the sayings that I love is, and this is attributed to American baseball player Yogi Berra, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. So having a long range goal of where do I want to end up? Where, what is my end game there? So planning, prevention, also, how can I prevent crises from occurring? Relationship building, really taking time, focusing on what are those important relationships in your life, professionally and personally, that you want to honor and build and protect. Those relationships take time. And so they're worthy of time. It's also discovering new opportunities as we grow as individuals or in our careers. Maybe there are some training workshops that you want to attend, or a new skill, or a new credential that you'd like to achieve. Or maybe it's planning time to have a lovely vacation with your family and really get that opportunity to build positive memories. So looking for those new opportunities and then taking advantage of the recreation that we have that is both enriching and memory building and so beneficial for us. Because Krishiv, I bet you know already that when we're talking about productivity, we can't be on 24/7, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. We can't be productive. So there needs to be some time scheduled and dedicated to leisure and things like gratitude journaling. These are not leisure, but these are necessities. They're not classified as productive, but they are also necessary things like journaling, exercise, meditation. All these things need to be scheduled. They're not necessarily productive, but they do lead to a higher productivity while we are in the uh, 9 to 5 time of the day.
Right. Yes. Yes. And so the results that we often see if we're functioning in this quadrant are that we have a greater sense of vision and perspective. We feel that work-life balance or just personal balance so much better. It takes a little bit of discipline to function in this quadrant, but by practice, we develop more discipline. And then we acquire a greater sense of control over what our lives are looking like. And there are fewer crises that are popping up too, because we're planning and preventing those. So let's look at quadrant 3. These are things that are urgent or appear to be urgent. They're time sensitive or time pressing, but they're not really that important. And so I'm sure you can think of some of these things too. It's the random interruption or some phone calls and some emails, not all, but some meetings, some reports, and and a few popular activities that are demanding your time right now, but they're not necessarily important. Yeah, Krishiv.
Nancy, now the quadrant three, a lot of people, they say that, uh, these tasks should be delegated to somebody else, but I can't do that. Many young people who are just starting up their career, or maybe new startup founders, they may not have so much cash. So in the end, all the task load is currently coming on to me. So technically, yes. Even though it's quadrant three, it's meant to be delegated to somebody else. But what should a one-man army? What should new founders? What should people with no staff be doing with the quadrant three? If you could shed some light to that.
I will. And I have in just a moment, I have some information for all four quadrants on how to manage that. So hold that question for just a moment, and I'm sure your audience is wondering, what? Yes, I'm in the same boat. What do I do about that? So hold that thought, and let's just finish out quadrant 4, and then we'll get back to those. So quadrant 4 is the things that are not urgent, but they also are not important. So think of the things that kind of waste time. It's trivia, it's busy work, some of those emails and phone calls, when we just get sucked into our email and we're scrolling through and it's not really benefiting us in any way. We do the same thing with our personal social media. Now, that's different than our work social media, which it serves a purpose and it is actually important and it can be time sensitive. But when we're just talking about downtime with personal social media. So we classify these as the time wasters. They're just diversion activities. A little bit of this can be relaxing, Krishiv, but it's when we are focusing too much in this area that we really are not being productive personally or professionally, and we can develop a sense of irresponsibility or a reputation of being irresponsible. Because we're not able to do what is within our responsibility, we then often become dependent on others. And we'll talk about delegation in just a second. It's different. We become overly dependent on others to do our job for us. And as a result, in the professional world, we may end up getting fired from jobs because we're just not doing our fair share. Our reputation gets harmed, and we find that both personally and professionally, we have little or no advancement with our goals. So it's not a great place to live. Now, in truth, we will have events that fall into all four of these categories. Okay, there's no way to function exclusively in quadrant 2, for example. So in quadrant 1, those activities, we just really want to work to manage those. And then, like you had suggested, let's shift some things over with a little bit of planning and prevention and see if we can, minimize how often these fires pop up that we have to manage. Quadrant 3, if you could go down that row, or that column, you mentioned delegation. So as much as possible, we first of all want to try to avoid those really unimportant tasks that are pressing our time. But if they do need to get done, but they don't need to get done now, then maybe we also delegate, or they do need to get done soon, we can delegate them to someone who has some opportunity, some ability, some space in their life to help us with that. And it may mean that we need, in like you and my roles as solopreneurs, it may mean that we need to hire someone to help us with that. So, it's not without an investment in someone else, but there may be some things that somebody can come alongside us and join our team in that way, even if we have to contract them to help us and then delegate some of those tasks. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. What if one is not in a position right now to contract some one? Is there like, let's say, quadrant 3 are the things that I would do in the second half? Let's say, you know, the terminology of first half is like from 9 a.m. to 1 or 2 p.m. And the second half is post lunch, which is 2 to 5. So, what for solopreneurs who do not have that opportunity yet to delegate, or what if you delegate them to your family members or friends and they just say no because that's normal? A lot of times people deny. So, what to do in that situation?
Well,
I'm
and I think, oh,
asking a complicated question, but life really is that complicated sometimes.
it is. It truly is. So look at the category that we're talking about here. We're talking about things that are demanding our time right now, but they're really not that important. So how many of those things can we say, this is not important enough to demand my time. It's not going to result in anything helpful for me in the long run. And so while I'm getting this pop up on my screen or this email that I am thinking about looking at, it's not important for me to spend time with it. So I'm going to delegate that for me to do later when I'm not in my most productive mode. So you mentioned the, 9 a.m. to whatever time, noon, 9 to noon. If you're a morning person, that is one's most productive mode or time. And so I'm not going to spend that time sorting through emails. I may delegate that for myself to do later when I don't need the brain energy to commit to it. Does that help a little bit?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
excellent. Excellent. So we've so far talked about managing quadrant one and avoiding as much as we can in quadrant three, or where it's possible, delegating or just saying no. But then in quadrant four, these are the things that we want to limit, or certainly some of them eliminate entirely. And it just depends on what we're talking about. If let's just pick on social media for a little while, because we love it, and we hate it. It helps us and it hinders us all at the same time. So maybe even just setting a timer on your phone for, what, I'm going to do a little bit of fun scrolling for 20 minutes, and then when my timer goes off, that's it, I'm done. And then go do something else, go for a walk and do something else to decompress. So those are the kind of how we would handle quadrant four activities. And then quadrant two is where we want to focus, right? So if we can just really dedicate our best brain time, our best energy time to thinking about what do I need to plan and how do I build my business or build my personal life, this is where we really want to emphasize where our time goes. What do you think?
Okay, I am quite new to these four uh, terms, because the one that I had read was one, do it. Quadrant two, schedule it. Quadrant three, delegate. And quadrant four, remove it or keep it for Sunday. But yes, this
Yes.
is also this is a more personalized way of explaining. It just seems like a very tailor made. So I'm going to make my changes now, and I'm going to write it as manage, focus, avoid, limit.
Yeah,
Can
and certainly
you
there are
give
other
me
words or
examples for one, two, three, four? If you have the slides.
sure. So, Krishiv, there are other words. I've seen different interpretations of this too. And so I think it's what works for the individual to really be effective and how we think of managing our time. So, I mean, all of those four words that you gave, they also apply. And this is, like I said, this is my interpretation and what seems to work best for me. So, the audience can apply different words too. There's plenty of wiggle room. Let's wrap this up, because I'm sure a lot of folks are wondering, like, why is a hypnotherapist talking about this? And I told you my previous career, so that's part of it. But also, individuals who are looking to manage their time better. When an individual meets with me, and I don't speak for all hypnotherapists, and there are plenty of really good ones out there as well. But what I do is I discuss what are the needs, the concerns that you are wanting to work on or make a change in. And then as we discuss, that alone can help create some greater self-awareness about where you're functioning in those different quadrants or in whatever area that you're working on making an improvement in. And then we develop some practical strategies. And I really emphasize the practical strategies, because again, it goes back to, if you don't know where you're going, it's really hard to aim for that goal and reach it. So we have to really develop a plan of action together that is workable for the individual. And then we reinforce it in hypnotherapy. So we can have a plan to exercise or a plan to eat better or a plan to utilize our time better. But unless we have that motivation and that intrinsic desire and intrinsic reminder to really act on it, that's where for a lot of folks it can fall apart. And sometimes there are some internal roadblocks, and it could be just as simple as words of like, oh, I can't, or oh, I'm terrible with managing time, or oh, I hate exercise, or whatever it is. And those are where the shift needs to happen. So with hypnotherapy, I can help an individual overcome those subconscious roadblocks to their conscious decisions and goals. And so it's just makes that end game a lot easier to reach. So that's what I do with hypnotherapy. And again, there's my contact information if anyone would like to grab a screenshot. So, and I'm going to stop sharing now. And
Thank
there
you
we go.
so
We're back.
much, Nancy. I believe that this is very wise, this is very practical, and this is a very productive way of managing the time. And I'm so glad that today, as an audience and as a host, I got so much value and I got to learn so much. Thanks to your clear and concise description. And this message is now for the audience. If you would like to see a part two or a continuation, write down in the comments and we will create another second version, a more detailed one for the task management matrix. And I encourage you to utilize this from right now, from the moment you finish watching this session. If you are around till this time, thank you very much for your love and your support. Any last thoughts you would like to add, Nancy?
No, I just thank you so much, Krishiv, for allowing me to come onto your podcast and share this information with you. And I just wish all of your viewers, your listeners, your audience, I just wish you all a lot of love and a lot of good things in life. And know that if you're ever feeling stressed or need someone to talk with, there's me and there are other professionals out there that are here to help everyone along the way on our life's journey. We're all in this together, Krishiv.
Absolutely. Lots of love and lots of productivity to all of you, to Nancy, to myself, to everyone. Thank you so much.